Welcome to Tardisian Files. In the Whoniverse's long history, the Doctor has been by no means the only alien to have encountered humanity. Whether it's ancient beings that inspired the embodiment of all evil, spider webs with enough gravity to pull the very Earth together, or scheming Gallifreyans pushing their own interests across the universe, humanity's development bears the mark of various alien encounters across time. So, in today's episode, we'll be discussing just how many aliens exactly have directly influenced humanity. To begin with, one cannot consider how many aliens have influenced humanity without beginning with the species that's responsible for the birth of their homeworld. In The Runaway Bride, the Doctor and Donna Noble take a voyeuristic trip back to the dawn of the solar system and witness that a refugee egg pouch, containing unborn Rachnos children, entered the orbit of the newborn sun. Being heavier than the elements around it, over time the Rachnos ship drew rocks and elements around itself, becoming the heart at the centre of a massive celestial rock in space. Without realising it, the ever-hungry, ever-murderous Rachnos had unintentionally created life. They had formed the Earth. When the Earth had finally finished forming, it was still devoid of any life, and it had an unsuspected visit from Scaroth the Jaggeroth, whose fellow Jaggeroth had crash-landed on the young Earth. When attempting to take off at Warp Drive 3 against his crew's advice, Scaroth caused a temporal explosion which splintered him into 12 incarnations across time, and the radiation from the warp drive gave a spark to the primordial soup on Earth, which led to the rise of organic chemistry, and thus, life on Earth. Communicating telepathically with his other selves throughout the eons, by 1979, Scaroth had advanced the human race at crucial points in its history to ensure that technology advanced just enough for him to build a time machine, with some assistance from the kidnapped Time Lady Romana, to go back in time and avert his splintering and, by extension, the death of his species. During his time on Earth, Scaroth had lived through the Cretaceous period among the dinosaurs, among early humans in the Paleolithic and Neolithic periods, before appearing as a god in ancient Egypt, and later periods of human history such as the Mid-Renaissance, the Enlightenment, and finally, the late 20th century. During this time, Scaroth worked his way into positions of power, interacting with people such as Leonardo da Vinci, and leaving his mark on humanity. His bid in the guise of Count Scarlione in 1979 was unsuccessful, when Romana tricked Scaroth into using a time machine which would automatically transport him back to the present after spending a mere few moments in the Paleozoic period. Upon returning to the Count's manor in 1979, he was shot dead by his own security. But Scaroth was by no means the first alien to manipulate early humanity. The Fendal was a creature that originated on Hestia, the lost fifth planet of the solar system between Mars and Jupiter. As Adam Colby put it, evolution went up a blind alley and a creature evolved on this planet which consumed life. Otherwise known as the Fendal, a Gestalt creature made up of the psychic merging of a Fendal core with 12 Fendaline creatures to form the final all-powerful creature. The exact specifics of the Fendal's nature, whether it was a species of its own right or a collective consciousness constantly working to manifest physically, is unknown, but the Fendal was considered to be such a threat to life that the Time Lords destroyed Hestia and placed the planet in a time loop to keep the Fendal captive, and they erased all records of it from their history. However, the Fendal had already escaped. In the form of a humanoid skull, the Fendal projected itself across space to Earth, becoming buried under a volcano in Kenya. Using a stockpile of energy stored in a neural relay in the back of the skull, the Fendal created a biological transmutation field, altering the genetic evolution of any species that came into contact with it, leading to the development of latent Fendaline genes within the human race. The Fendal could then psychically interact with these elements later in their descendants. In 1977, after planning for millennia, the Fendal attempted to manifest in Fetchborough Priory through Thea Ransom and a local coven of English pagans. The attempt was prevented by the Fourth Doctor, but only after the Fendal had successfully created 11 components to form a near-complete manifestation of itself. Another example of aliens manipulating humanity at the dawn of their history. But of course, not every alien influenced the evolution of humanity. After all, once you have sentient beings, a belief system is usually not too far behind, and the credit for the inspiration of a Dark Lord of evil in all of Earth's major religions goes to none other than the Beast. The horned demon from the pre-universe, bound and chained in the pit beneath Kroptor, revealed in the events of the Impossible Planet that the very idea of its existence had snaked its way into the minds of all religions across the universe, becoming the inspiration for demonic lords and tricksters in all of Earth's major religions across history. Except, of course, for that of the ancient Egyptians. While the Beast's influence no doubt reached Alexandria in ancient human history, the actual inspiration for Set and the other Egyptian gods was revealed in the pyramids of Mars to have been the Osirans. Long-lived beings from the planet Phaester Osiris, Horus and his fleet of fellow Osirans escaped the destruction of their homeworld at the hands of Sutekh and pursued him as he trailed across the galaxy to wreak havoc. Eventually landing on Earth in ancient times, the Osirans defeated Sutekh, and to ensure justice was served instead of revenge, they opted to imprison him beneath the Great Pyramid of Giza in a state of eternal immobility. Early humans who witnessed this legendary battle recorded depictions of the Osirans, and eventually they became the inspirations for their pantheon of gods. The demons were a similar species to the Osirans, with technology indistinguishable from magic. The demons played a long game, an experiment with humanity. Since their first landing around 100,000 BC, what started out as helping humanity outcompete the Neanderthals, the demons continued with their games, destroying experiments that failed. One notable example being the sinking of Atlantis sometime in 94,000 BCE. The remaining demon on Earth, Azal, was summoned in Devil's End in England in the early 1970s by the Master, hoping to be bestowed the demon's unimaginable power. Azal instead offered it to the Third Doctor, who refused. Azal was only stopped from judging humanity to be a failed experiment and wiping them out when Jo Grant begged to take the Doctor's place when Azal tried to kill him. This caused the demon to self-destruct, as he was unable to understand Jo's willingness to sacrifice herself. With all the demons and gods in Doctor Who, it's easy to forget another consistent element in human history: the afterlife. And what a shocker it was, at least in part inspired by yet another alien. Missy, the Master's female incarnation, spent an unspecified amount of time saving human consciousnesses to a matrix data slice, otherwise known as the Nethersphere. This device became one of the main inspirations behind concepts of a promised land or heaven, influencing humanity as far back as they'd had a concept of the afterlife. But then again, not all aliens inspired superstitions to do with death. Some have captured the imagination of humans, living on in their collective memories as legends. None perhaps nearly as famous as the Loch Ness Monster. This crowning honour can actually be shared by two alien beasts. The first, and more likely inspiration, is the Scaracen, a cyborg reptilian monster brought to Earth as an embryo by a warrior fleet of Zygons who crash-landed in Scotland centuries before the 1970s. When the Zygons' plans for invasion were set in motion, they deployed the fully grown Scaracen as a weapon to intimidate the UK government in surrender. The Fourth Doctor, Sarah Jane and Harry were able to destroy the Zygon ship and fed the Scaracen the homing device they'd been using to guide the Scaracen to London. With no new orders, the now abandoned beast returned to Loch Ness. But during the centuries the Zygons spent hiding under Loch Ness, the Scaracen may have gained a roommate in the form of Magellan. Known as the Borad on his homeworld of Carfel in the distant future, Magellan was a cruel and sadistic leader, punishing anyone who tried to usurp him by banishing them through a time corridor, leading to Loch Ness in the 12th century on Earth. In an ironic twist of fate, the Sixth Doctor and Peri helped the Carfelons stage a coup to oust the dictator, and he fell through his own time corridor. The Sixth Doctor mused that the half-reptilian Carfelon would likely inspire the legends of the famous monster, but given how territorial the Scarison was, and the undoubted difference in brute strength between them, I think that any reptile fight would have ended with a clear winner, and it was not the Borad. And those aliens certainly love to go down in history as legends, none more so than Fenric. The namesake of the Norse wolf god Fenrir, the son of Loki and the bringer of Ragnarok in the Norse pantheon's End of Days story, Fenric may have not actually created wolves, but after his imprisonment in a flask by an early incarnation of the Doctor in 3rd century Constantinople, Fenric began reaching out into N-space and manipulating the timelines. He started tapping into certain people's lineages so that their descendants would unwillingly bring about his freedom. One of these people was Ace McShane, the 7th Doctor's companion. First summoning the last of the Whonivores from a potential future of Earth to the 10th century, the monster followed the Vikings who took Fenric's flask to Northumbria to a settlement called Maid's Head. The Vikings grew to fear Fenric's influence and buried the flask under the village's church in a crypt with inscriptions warning anyone from entering. Their efforts, however, were in vain. The Whonivore had spent centuries multiplying to build Fenric an army, and by 1943, all of the wolves of Fenric, the descendants of his cursed bloodline, had arrived in Maid's Head. The entity was briefly released, but after the Prime Whonivore realised that it had been used, the 7th Doctor convinced it to drain Fenric's physical form, seemingly banishing the entity. But religion isn't the only impact on the human psychology that aliens have had. The Silence, those of the Kavarian chapter, while travelling down the Doctor's time stream, and apparently lacking creativity themselves, sought to influence humanity to create a spacesuit which they can modify into a weaponised exoskeleton, forcing Riversong to kill the 11th Doctor at the shores of Lake Silencio in 2011. Using their own time engine, the Silence travelled back to an unspecified point in human history, using their natural memory altering and suggestion abilities to inspire a fascination with the moon in the young humanity. The end result was a species so desperate to explore the stars that they developed the very suit the Silence needed for their purposes. And humanity is very susceptible to suggestion, a trait that the monks weaponised in their 6-month occupation of Earth in The Lie of the Land. After saving the 12th Doctor at Bill Potts' request, the monks gained a foothold into the collective minds of humanity and boosted their psychic link with Bill to completely subjugate the planet. The monks admittedly had no other reason than boredom and used their technology to rule Earth in a relatively peaceful invasion, spreading the lie that they had always been on Earth, protecting humanity. But this was at the expense of arresting anyone who remembered the truth. After their transmission hub was thwarted by Bill, the monks immediately left Earth. Their chief weapon against the population, their ability to influence their minds, now rendered useless. But some invaders don't even have the decency to show up. The Mullus was the first stage of an inexplicably aborted invasion by the Hakalians, who engineered this psychic being to carry out preemptive strikes on Earth. Instead, the Malus lay dormant until the English Civil War and fell into a pattern of feeding on the psychic energy of the violence and bloodshed, and then reawakening only to feast off of the pale imitations of the Civil War reenactments of the following centuries. By 1984, the Malus had become active again, captivating the mind of George Hutchinson, who intended to use the creature to recreate the violence of the original battle. The Malus was only stopped when its power source was cut off by the 5th Doctor, and in a final effort to generate as much destruction as it could, the Malus destroyed Hutchinson, itself, and the church they were in. Not necessarily the most monumental effect on human history, but not every alien on this list is a giant. Just ask the Vashta Nerada. While the Doctor has only ever encountered the Vashta Nerada strains from other planets, such as the Library and from the Voltron Rift near the subaquatic Poseidon base in the 23rd century, the 10th Doctor remarked that where there was meat, there was Vashta Nerada. And sometimes people went missing. Is it any wonder humanity has always had a irrational fear of the dark? But then, the night isn't always dark when you've got the moon shining down on us. Until, of course, 2049, when it hatched. By this time, humanity had stopped going into space, having apparently grown apathetic towards space travel. This was changed in 2039, when fluctuations in the moon's gravity caused high tide everywhere at once, and took out nearly every satellite. With humanity's global communications infrastructure brought to its knees, and planet Earth going through a decade of hell, by 2049 everyone was keen to remove the problem, or more specifically, blow it up. The destruction of the moon was averted when Clara Oswald, having learnt that the moon was in fact a hatching egg of a dragon-like species, aborted the detonation. Brought back to Earth by the 12th Doctor, he, Clara and the rest of humanity looked up to witness the creature hatch. And lay a new egg. Intentionally or not, the moon hatchling inspired a new age of space travel for humanity, no doubt leading to its later space exploration and colonisation in later centuries. Then again, not every accident caused by an alien has such a happy outcome. You can ask the Pteroleptals that question, or just about anyone living in London on the 2nd of September 1666. After being stopped from releasing a mutated variant of the plague by the 5th Doctor, the Pteroleptals' atmospheric gas generator malfunctioned, sparking the flames that would lead to the Great Fire of London. It may well have destroyed the Pteroleptals' plague, along with sterilising the local variant, ending the ongoing outbreak, but about 80,000 people were rendered homeless, and not to mention numerous people being injured and or killed. Sometimes stopping an alien threat does not prevent collateral damage. And the last entry on this list would know all about collateral damage. It's none other than the Time Lords. The high-born people of Gallifrey who swore never to interfere with time and only observe. Except they did. All the time. Whether it was through division in its early days, through its own Celestial Intervention Agency acting on behalf of the Council, corruption in the High Council leading to the sanctioning of various alterations of Earth's past and future, or through sending the Doctor to Earth to definitely not defend it from alien threats, the Time Lords have participated in influencing humanity probably more than any other species on this list. Their reasons have ranged from defending the Earth from Dalek incursions during the Time War, admittedly as it was in their best interests, or for reasons as petty as covering up the theft of secrets from the Matrix, bearing in mind the culprits weren't even from Earth, they were merely hiding there. The Time Lords of Gallifrey have arguably done nothing but interfere in humanity's development, both indirectly and directly when it suited them. Now, this is by no means an exhaustive list, but this lamentation highlights some of the most influential species in the Whoniverse. Some unintentionally influencing humanity, some deliberately working to fulfill their own agendas, some influencing humanity in small ways, others altering the entire trajectory of humanity's development. Even after nearly 65 years of Doctor Who, that is still an impressive number of aliens influencing humanity in an impressive variety of ways. What did you think for our top picks for aliens who influenced humanity? Did you agree with our list? Did you notice something that we missed? Let us know in the comments of your favourite streaming app, or in the comments section for our social media posts for this episode on Instagram and TikTok at Tardessian Files Podcasts. We also have a Blue Sky account now under the handle at tardessianfiles.bsky.social, where we will not only be posting about new episodes, but we'll also be using it to engage with our lovely viewers to hear more of your ideas and feedback. Please leave a like and subscribe, and as always, see you next time on Tardessian Files.